Hello and welcome to this month's presentation. This is entitled Hydration, Nutrition, and You. And we're going to talk about some nice tips to help stay hydrated. We often think more of hydration through those hot months, but it's also important all year round, but also in the cold months because we've got those heaters running, right? And they can dry things out and help us to dehydrate too. Absolutely. Yep, you'll start to feel it, right? Okay. So, do you drink enough water? Are you thinking, well, I have 2 coffees a day, or I drink some tea, or I have a glass of water with every meal. I should be good, right? Well, but do you really know how well hydrated you are? How do you know? How much water should you drink? And what kinds of drinks are actually working towards the negative and dehydrating you instead of working towards your hydration? And then what does it all matter? So, how do you know if you're dehydrated? There are many signs that can tell you if you're dehydrated, and some of them can be very serious. Dehydration can cause fatigue, muscle weakness and cramps, headaches, dizziness, nausea, forgetfulness and confusion, and also constipation. None of those are very fun, right? So again, this is going to give us another depiction of some of these warning signs, okay? Headaches or lightheadedness, bad breath and dry mouth, constipation and other digestive issues, fatigue and lethargy, joint and muscle pain, and accelerated heartbeat. And then if we talk about some more serious symptoms, we're getting into some severe dehydration. We're looking at deep, rapid breathing, increased heart rate, dry mouth, sunken eyes, skin that lacks normal elasticity. So when you pull on your skin and it comes up a little bit, if you're severely dehydrated, it will actually stay there and not bounce right back like it should. And then decreased urine output. And it can affect the way your body breaks down and uses your medication. So knowing what types of medication you take and how that can be affected by your hydration status is really important. And then what would happen if you were dehydrated and that medication wasn't as effective as it should be because it can't get to your cells effectively. Also, if we think about in terms of going to the doctor and saying, hey, this medication isn't as effective, or I'm not getting the reduction in my symptoms that I'm taking this medication for, what's the doctor going to do? Tell you to take more, right? They're going to increase your dosage. Well, what if it's actually your hydration status that's impairing the whole system? Okay, so this is a nice little diagram that shows some of the benefits of staying hydrated. Print's a little small, so I'll go ahead and read it. Muscle fuel, clearer skin, a productivity boost, toxic remover, joints are greasier, brain boost, calorie control, blood normalizer, fatigue buster, and fluid balance. Okay, so how do we know if we're dehydrated? Well, first thing we need to know is how much water should we be drinking? Adults should drink 8 8-ounce glasses of water each and every day. That is the minimum requirement. That's when you're not doing anything out of the ordinary, not doing any heavy activity, not sitting out in the sun or sitting somewhere where there's a heater going right on you, any of those types of things that are going to make you use more fluid in your body. And then water consumed in foods does count towards this total. And we're going to talk about some foods that are high in water content a little later. Okay, so where does this fluid go, right? We put it in, but where does it go? According to the Mayo Clinic, every day you lose water through your breath, perspiration, urine, and bowel movements. For your body to function properly, you must replenish its water supply by consuming beverages and food that contain water. So what goes in must come out, right? And just the reverse. What goes out must then be replaced by bringing more in. Does it matter when I drink? Yes, and here are some recommendations of when and then what it does. So some of the best times to drink water are first thing in the morning, 2 glasses when you wake up, because it helps to activate your internal organs and get things functioning and moving. While we sleep, our body processes some of the toxins that are in our body. And I know we've probably heard, you should change your pillowcases and your sheets often because our body does detoxify while we sleep. Well, a lot of that process involves some water, okay? So if we replenish that water first thing in the morning, then our body goes, oh, great, I have the fluid I need to continue doing these processes. 1 glass of water 30 minutes before a meal does help with digestion. You don't want to drink too much while you're eating. I mean, obviously, it's not going to hurt anything to do that, but while you're eating, it's going to take away from what you're putting in terms of, you're going to feel more full, which again, sometimes can be a benefit, right? But if you're trying to focus on getting your meal in, you really need to focus on the food and sips of water to keep things going down. But that glass of water 30 minutes before the meal is going to help make sure your body has all the fluid it needs to properly break down the food that you're going to put in, giving the body a little bit of time to process that fluid and make it into what it needs to help with digestion. You want to drink a glass of water before taking a bath. This is going to help lower your blood pressure. And again, like we talked about, it's going to help to give your system that fluid it needs to process things, because we're going to take some of, especially the moisture balance on our skin is going to change when we're in water and then once we come out of it. And then 1 glass of water prior to bed can help reduce with leg cramps. Okay, so how bad can dehydration be? Elderly dehydration can cause swelling in the brain. If a person tries to consume too much water suddenly after being dehydrated, the cells in the brain may try to store the water too quickly, causing damage and rupture of brain cells. Seizures, and then kidney failure. Dehydration may prevent the kidneys from removing waste from the blood, as well as make the concentration of medications too high in the body, right? Because our kidneys are working on that fluid balance all the time, and they are excreting some of the toxins and waste from our body, but they need water to be able to do that, because the way that they function, we have to have enough fluid for those toxins to be able to go into that and then be excreted through our urine. Why are we more at risk as we age? Did you know that as we age, our thirst reflex actually decreases? Also, we have less overall fluid in our bodies. As we age further, we can have a decreased ability to obtain water due to immobility or medical conditions. We have less fluid overall. Okay, so that's, so many different processes that are going on. But one thing I'll point out is as we talk about joints and arthritis, right? That's a popular topic around here. One of the things that affects that decrease in height that we often see in people as they age is that we lose some of that fluid content in those intervertebral discs in between our vertebrae and our spine. That is what causes that height loss, okay? That's also happening at each of the joints of our bodies in different ways. We're losing some of the fluid content in that tissue in those joints, and that is part of that process of arthritis. So that's something to think about too. It's not reversible by drinking more water. However, if you're keeping yourself hydrated and at that proper fluid balance, you're going to slow that process some, okay? Prevent it from getting worse. So, should I only drink water? Well, we do want to limit sodas and other drinks that contain high amounts of sugar and may also contain caffeine or artificial sweeteners. because those can have some unpleasant side effects. But also, our body then, if it has to get rid of any extra sugar, again, we're talking about the body having to do more processes that use water to do that, right? Our body is mostly water and uses water for most of the processes to break down and transport things, and then to remove waste and toxins as well. So extra sugar in your drinks is not a helpful place, right? If you're having sugar in your diet, it should be from a source where you're intentionally eating this, saying, okay, I'm eating this for the carbohydrate benefit of it, like a piece of fruit or whatever. You really want to limit your sugar in your drinks because that's not helping anything, right? A little here and there is okay, right? Moderation, but it needs to be actual moderation and not, oh, well, you know, just 2 Diet Cokes a day. Well, that's not moderation, my friends, right? Okay, coffee and tea, once thought to be dehydrating, are now considered hydrating because their diuretic effect does not offset hydration. Again, take that with a grain of salt. We still want to remember a cup of coffee or a cup of tea is not going to give you the same hydrating effect that a cup of water is, okay? But we used to say, you know, really, really limit coffee and really, really limit tea. Yes, if they have caffeine, absolutely you do want to limit or moderate what you're taking in, because caffeine does impact the hydration, your overall hydration, and can help to dehydrate you, okay? But if it's decaffeinated, then we're not considering that to have a significant dehydrating effect like we used to think, okay? And then milk has actually been found to be more hydrating than water because it replaces sodium lost and helps the body to retain fluid better. So again, that has a lot to do with that balance in our system, and specifically we think of the kidneys and our urine processing system because those kidneys have to maintain certain ratios of each of the different nutrients and minerals and things in our system, okay? And so our electrolytes that we talk about frequently, sodium, potassium being the biggest two, we're looking at milk helping to replace some of the sodium lost, whereas water is not going to do that, right? So that's helping with that electrolyte balance there.
Now, does it have an effect what kind of milk you drink? Since there's whole milk, 2%, 1%, all that?
So that's, in terms of overall hydration, no. In terms of the way your body has to process that, a little bit. But still, when we're looking at milk as we consume it and as it's labeled, you know, our whole milk, 2%, 1% skim, there is not a huge difference between all of those, especially the ones that are right next to each other, right? Like whole milk and skim milk, there's a decent difference. But in between, you're kind of, there's not as much difference there. But most of what that is changing is the fat content, but then also, okay, well, what do they put in when they reduce the fat? Well, they put in more regular water, so they're diluting the product. But then there's also sugar and other additives in there too, to still give it a good taste, right? So you've kind of got to weigh that and go into what you're looking to get out of that milk, right? For most of us, probably we could drink whole milk and be just fine. There's also a lot more data out there these days on how our body processes all the different nutrients, and that yes, for some people, especially if they're getting a lot of fat in other places in their diet, it could be good to have lower fat options for their dairy products that they're consuming. But if you're not consuming a whole lot of fat in the rest of your diet, then you may want to go for a full fat dairy product because it is a good source of fat. So you'd have to look into that in a lot more detail and kind of narrow down what your goal is in drinking that to make that decision. Yep. Okay, so Which liquids are best for hydration? We just talked a little bit about that. Milk, water, tea, juice, sports drinks. We want to look for lower sugar ones because, again, with sports drinks, they're a great example of something that is marketed really, really well, right? Oh, drink a Gatorade. Okay, but someone who's mostly sedentary should not drink a Gatorade. That is for replenishing all of those things that you use when you sweat. And so if you're not sweating, you're not moving around a whole lot, you probably don't need Gatorade. Now, you may still need some of those electrolytes, but I guarantee you don't need all that sugar that's in there. Most people, even if they're exercising a little bit, probably still don't need all that additional sugar that's in a Gatorade or a similar product. So we definitely want to look for a lower sugar option when we're looking at a sports drink or an electrolyte replenisher. There's powders and things these days too. But we definitely don't want to have a lot of sugar intake just from that. We want to save that mostly for our food sources. So the smaller diagram here shows, that's funny, it's outdated, but it shows that alcohol is a poor choice and soda drinks are a poor choice. Milk has now moved over to being a better choice, which is neat to be able to see those changes as we get more information, right? And then tea and coffee, again, they are a poor choice if they're caffeinated. If they're decaffeinated, they are a decent choice, okay? Still potentially not as good of a benefit as milk or water, but not a poor choice as long as we don't have that caffeine that is gonna cause us to process a little more of that fluid out. Okay, so what does water do? Did you know that the human brain and heart are composed of 73% water? Water hydrates all of our cells and organs, and it can help to ensure that our body functions to the best of its ability. This shows the brain as being 75% water. The blood is 92% water. Our bones are 22% water. And then our muscles are 75% water. An interesting example with that, with muscles is, I don't know if you've ever seen somebody who does bodybuilding, not around here, but you may have seen pictures, right? They do some interesting things and play some interesting tricks around their competitions and things, and they'll mess with their fluid balance, but they have to be careful because muscle is 75% water. And so if they don't time things right with increasing their fluid back for a competition, then they're not gonna have as crisp of a look to their muscles. So very interesting. All right, so what does water do for you? We've talked about some of this, but now we're gonna go into some specifics at different parts of the body. So it forms saliva, which aids in digestion. It keeps the mucosal membranes moist. We're thinking mostly the eyes, the nose, and the mouth here. And then it allows your body's cells to grow, reproduce, and just conduct normal function of living. It flushes waste in from digestion through urine and the bowels. It lubricates your joints. It is the major component of 99% of your body. Your brain needs it to manufacture hormones and neurotransmitters. Your body regulates temperature through sweating and respiration, so those need water. It acts as a shock absorber for your brain and spinal cord. Those guys float in fluid. And it converts food into available components through digestion. And it helps deliver oxygen and nutrients all over your body, right? We talked about the blood being 90% water. And then it does even more than that. We're still discovering things every day that water helps with in our bodies. Okay, but the drawback, right? But it makes me pee. Okay, gastrointestinal problems often occur due to dehydration. So having issues with constipation or bowel movements, have some water. Yes, it is going to make you pee, but that's a normal process. Your body's supposed to do that, okay? Many seniors struggle with incontinence, and a common misconception is that drinking more fluids will lead to more frequent urges and make the issues worse, but that's not true. Not only can lessening fluid intake make incontinence worse, but it can also result in worse dehydration, right? We have to find that fluid balance. And when we do find that actual balance, that urgency should go down somewhat in people with incontinence, but then we also see the amount of times you're needing to urinate level out a little bit. If you're drinking too much, you gotta go pee too much. If you're drinking too little, you're not peeing enough, your body's not producing enough urine to clear out the toxins in your body, and that is going to worsen with dehydration. Okay, so one of the handouts shows a nice little chart that we have printed in color for you. It's actually the second handout. It says, how do I know if I'm hydrated? Are you hydrated? This is a urine color chart. So I'm not necessarily suggesting you take this into the bathroom with you, but you can take a peek at that and say, okay, I get what they're saying. If we're looking at 1, 2, and 3, where we're hydrated, there's very little color to that urine, okay? As you're getting to 3, you're starting to see some light yellow, right? But really, if you're fully hydrated and everything's at optimal condition, your urine should not have much color to it. Then if we're looking at just dehydrated, we're starting to see that darker yellow color, okay? I am gonna cheat and use this to read that small print to you.
Medication affects the color.
It does, it does. So there is a little note at the bottom there. It says precaution. Certain medications and vitamin supplements may change the color of your urine. The color of this chart should only be used as a general guide, okay? But for hydrated, it says if your urine matches the colors numbered 1 through 3, you are hydrated. Then the second category is 4, 5, and 6, and that's dehydrated. If your urine matches the colors numbered 4 through 6, you are dehydrated and need to drink more fluid. Probably that is where most of us are most of the time. And then if we're looking at number 7 and 8, that's severely dehydrated. If your urine matches these colors, you're severely dehydrated and should consult a doctor. So we've all gone into the bathroom and seen a 7 and an 8, right? We've all had times where we've been very dehydrated. It happens easily, especially when we're doing other things or not paying attention or going somewhere and I really don't want to have to use the bathroom while I'm there. Okay, but we have to think about what we're doing to our body when we do that. If we're seeing this dark yellow color, even to approaching almost like a brown in number 8 there, that means as soon as you get out of the bathroom, you need to go ahead and drink at least 1 8-ounce glass of water. And what's hard about that too is if you are severely dehydrated, you have to be careful that you don't go drink a gallon of water right away because your system won't be able to process it correctly. It will overwhelm your system and all your tissues will go and suck it up, but your body won't be able to handle it in the volume that you've given it. So you have to be careful with that as well. Now, 1 8-ounce glass of water, no matter when you drink it, is always going to be a positive thing. I just wouldn't sit and drink your full 8-ounce glasses that you need in a day all in one sitting, right? Again, that moderation is helpful. So even if you see your urine and it's a 4, 5, or a 6, when you come out of the bathroom, that's your reminder to go ahead and drink an 8-ounce glass of water. And I need to have a mirror in front of me as I say that. Okay, not so fun facts about dehydration. Each year, approximately 518,000 hospitalizations were primarily due to dehydration. About 10,000 of those admitted to the hospital for dehydration will pass away there. Nearly $5.5 billion in hospital charges were resulted from dehydration admissions. We see it all the time here. Somebody goes out, and a lot of times, the hospital can just say, oh, okay, you're dehydrated. Here's what you need to do. Go home, right? That's best case scenario if that patient then is able to get themselves hydrated again. But lots of people need to be admitted to at least get some IV fluids to get their hydration status back up, right? Because if we're giving hydration intravenously and we're giving it as not just straight water, right? But we're giving it as some type of a solution that's got other things in it, those electrolytes and things to help our system to be able to handle that fluid that's coming in and giving it everything that it needs in the right balance so that our system doesn't get overwhelmed. That's honestly the best way we have to rehydrate someone who's dehydrated, is to give them intravenous fluids. And it's been very interesting in the last number of years. There have been lots of companies and clinics that have popped up or even existing clinics that now offer this as a service, they'll offer hydration IVs. So you can go into a place, or sometimes they'll come to you and have that service provided. Whereas we used to only be able to get that, and most people still do only get that at the hospital in cases of severe dehydration. But now we have this as a possible preventative option to be able to do that at a clinic or in your home instead of having to go to the hospital. Again, that is something you would need to have a conversation with your doctor about before you did that. I'm not trying to make that recommendation. I'm just saying it's an interesting thing that we've seen that start to be a business model, and people who are even young and healthy are using that as a potential option to help ward off dehydration. And especially around, athletic events and things like that, it's now become kind of a concierge medicine option. So if even the athletes are doing it, right, then we need to be mindful of our hydration too. So we talked about the magnitude of the problem. So it requires our attention. So what are some simple changes, right? We talked about how big this problem is. What are some simple changes we can make? Drinking water with every meal. If you're not drinking water with every meal, you need to be. Like we talked about, if you drink a nice glass of water 30 minutes before your meal, that's going to help you digest your meal better. If you're drinking water as you're eating, that's going to help aid with digestion as well. Not quite as much as before, because that's giving your body time to process that fluid. But we always want to drink with your meal. Get a 32-ounce water bottle and write hour increments along the side with a permanent marker. Try to keep up with the hour marks, refill at lunch, and keep drinking every hour until bed. Okay, in an ideal world, that sounds good. But how many of us are actually going to do that, right? One neat thing is that they do actually make water bottles that now say that on them, and you can order them with those markings are already on there, or it'll say like, good job, keep going. There's some neat hydration aids out there. But one thing I do want to talk about, this is just saying arbitrarily, okay, take your amount of water for the day and just split it evenly throughout the whole day. Okay, well, that doesn't always make sense, because every day is going to be a little different. But then also, if we're talking about being worried about having to use the bathroom and urinate, something that I always talk about with people who are worried about incontinence and when and where they're going to have to go to the bathroom, if you're worried about that, and if you get up multiple times throughout the night and you don't want to, obviously who wants to, then what you need to do is you need to front load your day. And what I mean by that is, yes, the first thing you're starting with as soon as your feet hit the floor is you're going to drink 2 8-ounce glasses of water first thing in the morning. It's the first thing you do, okay? Then through your morning, you're going to continue to drink. And it doesn't need to be sit down and drink the entire 8-ounce glass of water in one shot. I don't mean you have to do that, but you're drinking through your morning. You're drinking until lunchtime. You're drinking even up until dinner time. By the time you get to dinner time, if you have drank a good amount of water for the day, then just sip water for the rest of the day after your meals are completed. Because the biggest thing is that you don't want to have too much additional fluid thrown into your system right at the end of your day if you're concerned about having to get up through the night. Okay, so I always like to recommend front loading your fluid early in the day. Okay, so we mentioned quickly earlier that there were some foods that have water and that counts towards our overall fluid intake. Half of your daily intake of water is from solid food, fruits, and vegetable juices. Watermelon, grapefruit, cantaloupes, honeydews, celery, cucumbers, tomatoes, green peppers are all great choices. Applesauce, apricots, cooked asparagus, bananas, blackberries, blueberries, cooked broccoli, cooked cauliflower, cherries, grapes, raspberries, and strawberries are also good sources. Now, you saw that with those vegetables, we made the point to say cooked. If you're eating some of the vegetables raw, like I don't know that many people eat asparagus raw, but broccoli and cauliflower, right? You can eat those raw. If you eat them raw, you will not get as much fluid content from them because the process of cooking those vegetables allows us to break down the fluid from inside them better, okay? So again, mostly fruits and some vegetables that we're seeing here. So our top number one most hydrating food is watermelon, right? We named it for it, okay? Watermelons are 93% water. Then we've got some that are 90%. So that's gonna be your salad greens, berries, tomatoes, radishes, cauliflower, zucchini, and peppers. And again, with that cauliflower, you're gonna cook that. And then 85% water, we have acorn squash and butternut squash, okay? So those are some of the best, most hydrating foods. You're getting the biggest percentage there. Okay, some others. Cucumbers are 96% water, celery 95, tomatoes 94.5, and then watermelon again 96, star fruits 92, grapefruit is 90%, coconut water is the actual water from the coconut, so that's 99% water with some other natural stuff in there. And then lemon 90%, lettuce 95%, lime 90%. And again, the lemon and the lime, you're gonna wanna have that with water because just the juice of that without dilution would not be all positive for you, would not give you all a hydrating effect there. All right, so nutrition and you. Nutrition is about eating a healthy and balanced diet so that your body gets the nutrients that it needs. Nutrients are substances in food that our body needs so that it can function and grow. These include carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Those are the three macronutrients, and then we have the micronutrients would be vitamins and minerals. Okay. There's a handout here that has some details on some of this fun stuff, okay? Talking about vitamin A. Vitamin A is needed for good eyesight, growth, and healthy skin and tissue. And some good sources are carrots, eggs, sweet potato, cheese, and fish. And then the B vitamins, each of the B vitamins does something a little bit different for us. But we find B vitamins in nuts and whole grain bread and fish and meat and beans. And then if we look at vitamin C, we know that vitamin C helps with our immune system, helps to protect the body from infection. It also helps to heal wounds and absorb calcium and iron from your food, right? A lot of our vitamins and minerals actually help us to absorb other things in our diet. So good sources of vitamin C: broccoli, peppers, kale, oranges, tomatoes, and berries. And then iron is needed for the formation of red blood cells. A lack of iron can cause a condition called anemia. Most noticeable symptom that people are going to notice themselves would be fatigue with that. So if you have your iron levels optimal, you're going to have more energy. We're looking at green vegetables, nuts, beans, and red meat for sources of iron. And then calcium is of course important for the growth of strong bones and teeth. A lack of calcium can lead to weak bones and diseases such as osteoporosis, but along with that calcium, we'll make that little note that vitamin D is also needed for us to adequately absorb that calcium and process it. So vitamin D, we get most of our vitamin D from the sun. And it's important to even get outside for a couple minutes each day, even in the winter and even when it's cold. Just bundle up. It's just your face that would need to be exposed for you to get those benefits from vitamin D from sunlight. Vitamin D helps absorb calcium for strong teeth and bones, and a lack of vitamin D can lead to bone diseases such as osteoporosis. So our sources of vitamin D: salmon, sunlight, eggs, beef liver are some examples. That is also a great reason why a lot of us need to supplement with vitamin D. Number one, because we're not outside as much. And number two, because we don't all hit all of those food sources of vitamin D every single day, okay? And then I skipped food sources for calcium. Obviously, we know milk, cheese, any dairy, kale, sardines, and nuts are examples there, okay? So there's our basics on nutrition. So how do we have a happy, healthy diet? We want to provide our body with the proper nutrients, which can help you to stay active and independent in your community. If you don't give your body the resources that it needs, it's not going to perform optimally for you. So we want to focus on variety, nutrient-dense foods, whole food sources wherever you possibly can. If it came from a box, limit it, okay? Limit calories from sugars, saturated fats, and reduce sodium intake. Yes, that's the conventional dietary thing. Okay, yes, we definitely want to limit calories from sugars, especially processed sugars, but we don't necessarily need to so much limit it if it's from whole food sources like fruits, right? Fruits are good for you, even though they're high in sugar, and the way our body has to break that down is a little bit different, and it's not as much of a negative. It's those processed sugars that are really the killer. And if what you're eating says it has a whole bunch of added sugar in it, it's probably not something you should be eating, okay? Then if we look at our saturated fats, sure, you wanna limit that, but fat is not a bad guy. Fat is one of those macronutrients. So we just need to make sure that we're balancing our fat sources. And then as far as reducing your sodium intake, I would say moderate or balance your sodium intake. And it's also a good idea to, if you're going to use additional salt in your food, to use an iodized form of salt. Okay, then you want to focus on healthier food and beverage choices. Again, less processed, more whole foods. Think protein first for snacks and meals. We always want to get that protein in first, especially as an older adult. You're not processing protein as easily as your body used to when you were younger. So your protein needs to be your number one most important thing. Every time you put something in your mouth, you should have a protein source with that snack or meal, okay? You really want to increase your fruits and vegetables wherever you can, because those whole food sources are going to give you the most bang for your buck, the least empty calories, and the most vitamins and minerals and nutrients. And then ask your doctor about vitamins or supplements to offset missed nutrients. Again, vitamin D is a really big one, but vitamin D is fat soluble, so you do want to make sure you're taking a recommended dosage of vitamin D. You could take as much vitamin C as you wanted, and you will just excrete the extra through your urine. Vitamin D, you will not. Most of us are low in vitamin D, and we could take it all day long every day and probably still be fine. However, it is fat soluble, so you will not excrete excess. All right, what's your homework? I'd like you to try to make small changes, because if we try to do anything big all at once, we're probably just gonna miss the mark and get frustrated. But if we think of making small incremental changes and things that are doable, then we're gonna see that and go, okay, great. I drank, 1 extra glass of water today. Maybe I can drink 2 extra glasses tomorrow, whatever. Okay, I ate 1 more piece of fruit today. Maybe I can eat a piece of fruit again tomorrow. Great, awesome. Making sure we are adding water in small increments throughout the day, because that's the easiest way to do it, right? Have that water bottle out, or a cup of water or whatever, and take a couple sips of it every time you walk past it. Try a different temperature of water. Some people like their water ice cold. That bothers my teeth, right? I like my water more like room temperature, and my husband goes, ew, gross, how do you drink that, right? Okay, but everybody's different. And then, warm water, there's also warm and hot water. There's really good data on hot water aiding in digestion. So the temperature of the water is not ever going to be a fully negative thing. It's more to taste, whatever feels good for you, okay? And different things might feel good different times of the day, so go with that. And then try adding a kick of flavor like lemon or lime juice. There's also a ton of different, powdered drinks and little liquids that you can squirt in, and they're real concentrated. If you have to do that to get the water down, okay, do that in moderation, but you're going to be better off doing something more natural like a lemon or a lime juice, because along with those powders and liquids comes a lot of other chemicals that you just don't need to be putting into your body. Also, a lot of times they either come with sugar or an artificial sweetener, and it's best to just avoid that if it's not in something that you're needing to take in, okay? And then trying to eat more fruits and vegetables, because as we talked about, a lot of those fruits and vegetables have a high water content. Okay, thank you for joining us for this presentation. I hope you enjoyed and benefited from the information. If you have any questions, your therapy team is here to answer them, whether it be about hydration and nutrition to anything about your body. We'd love to talk to you about it. Okay. Thank you for coming.